So what do you notice about the aorist active indicative in terms of just right off the bat? Has a temporal augment. All 6 forms have a temporal augment. The temporal augment on the front tells you that this is putting the verbal action in the past tense. And then all 6 forms have a sigma in it. And then it's a, sa, sen, samens, sate, son. So what does the aorist tell you? If the imperfect is something that happens over and over and over again, what does the aorist tell you? We can say just happened once. Technically, this is a orizo, not boundaried off. This is the generic. So the imperfect is telling you over and over, and the aorist is not. It's just generically telling you this happened in the past. Simple past tense. No frills, no, just generic past tense.
So the aorist always has the temporal augment of the epsilon, at the beginning. Is that just how you know that a verb is an aorist? It has the epsilon and then one of those endings?
Right. So here's the curveball. So my little girls, they're 16. When they were about 3, I remember they were learning, and I think I remember this. One of them ran in from the porch and said, Daddy, I goed outside today. And I think it was one of my sons said, oh, silly girl. You should say, I went outside today. And I forgot, well, I think it was my youngest son said that, and I wanted to say, wow, we didn't overcorrect you like that, and now he's overcorrecting the little girls. Why did my little girl say, Daddy, I goed outside today? Past tense, and that's the way most verbs work. Go, went, gone is an irregular verb. And so with a handful of verbs in any language, they're called irregular verbs. They're going to have kind of their own deal. And you just pick those up as a child over time. Oh, it isn't goed, it's went, right? Guess what? Greek has irregular verbs. So 95% of verbs are going to fall in this chart. Only a handful are going to be irregular, but we have to learn them because they happen to be very frequent verbs. So how do you do, so this is called a first aorist. This is how most verbs are going to work. The go, went, gone verbs are going to work this way. They're going to have what's called a second aorist. And to have a second aorist, what you have to do is you take the imperfect endings and you have a root change. Imperfect endings and a root change, and that gives you a second aorist. So the imperfect of balo would be ebalon with 2 lambidas. But the aorist, your root changes, you go down to 1 lambda, and then you use your imperfect endings. So to have a second aorist, you use your imperfect endings, but you have to couple that with a change in the root. If you don't have a change in the root, you can't have a second aorist.
So, follow has 2 aorist forms?
It only has 1 aorist form. It's a second aorist. That's your irregular ending for those irregular verbs. We'll actually see one. So if we did the imperfect of this, it would form off the present. So the imperfect would be ebalon, but with 2 lambdas. And the aorist, because your root change is to 1, it would be ebalon, but with 1 lambda. The root change is what allows you to use the imperfect endings as aorist endings. It's a go, went, gone verb. So if we were in Greek, my little girl would have run in and said, Daddy, ebalasa the ball today. I threw the ball today. And Christopher would say, oh, you silly girl, it isn't ebalsa, it's ebalon. Right? Irregular verbs are only a handful of verbs. They're only like 12, 15, 20 verbs. But they happen to be the verbs that are used over and over and over in the language. And so we have to learn the second aorist. 95% are going to have a first aorist, and you just put saw on the end of it. You with me? We'll see enough of them where it will become second nature. Wow, I got fancy with these slides, didn't I? In order to have a second aorist, you must have a root change. If you don't have a root change, it can't be a second aorist. It has to be an imperfect. Wow, I really got fancy with that. So here's some examples. I throw, I will throw, that's a liquid future. They don't like putting sigmas next to liquids. Ebalon's your second aorist. Pipto is I fall. Pesumai, deponent future. We'll learn about that later. Epison, I fell. And notice the root change. Pipto goes to pes, right? And because you had a root change, then you can use the imperfect endings, but they're not imperfect. This is a second aorist. Second aorists have a root change plus the imperfect endings. You with me? So the imperfect of pipto would be epipton, right? Because you don't have a root change, and you just add pipton would be your I was falling. I kept falling down over and over and over again versus I fell down, right? Epison.
How do you know which words when they're like original? Like you said, you take away for the ebalon, it's taken away one of the lambdas. How do you know which one to take away for that to make it?
So it turns out you have to memorize the irregular ones. My professor made me memorize the 70 or whatever it is forms. And we did that third quarter in Greek. And it was hard because you're memorizing the go, went, gone verbs. But I've had them for a lifetime. I've never been able to require my class to memorize, and they've all struggled with irregulars. So I don't know. He did it better than I did it, but I just can't make students memorize that list because it was very difficult. And by that time we're reading Greek, and I just think you read Greek and it fixes things. So, but we have one that we've already run across, lambano. Lambano lampsomai, so that's going to be a deponent future. Elebon. You see the root change? This has fallen out, and this has fallen out. And all ano verbs, like lanthano goes to elethon. So this is like sing, sang, swim, swum. There are patterns in irregular ones, so once you kind of get a pattern, you can get 4 or 5 of them. But this is a pattern lots of verbs fall in, but you can see it's a second aorist because you've got the root change. So the imperfect would be elambanon, I kept taking, versus elaban, I took, right? And so because I had the root change, I can use the imperfect endings to get my second aorist. Okay, so let's go around the room. So we'll go to Andrew, Caleb, Daniel, Brett, Zoe, Vinny, Megan Ann, Fisher, and Petra. You want to go that order, and we'll just see how many we can go through. Are we good with that? So just translate. I'll read it, Andrew, and you translate. NRK ein ha logos. Good. Kai ha logos ein pros ton theon. Right, and what's like literally? Good. Kai theos ein ha logos. Good. And Daniel, hutos ein NRK pros ton theon. Good. Or if you want to get technical about it, this one was in beginning toward the God.
Is that the neuter, not the masculine?
No, it's a masculine. Hutos halte tuta.
So, because I've been translating it, this man was in the beginning. Is that
Yeah, that's right. That's what it says. This man. Cooper, Ponta dial tu agenita.
all things came about through him?
Perfect. All things came about through him. And this is the declension of all things. So, pas upon, every man, every woman, everything, of every man, to or for every man, all men, or of all men, to all men in the accusative, feminines, every woman, of every woman, to or for every woman, all women, of all women, to or for all women, all men, all women, and then everything, of everything, to everything, all things. So that's tricky because it can either be nominative masculine singular or nominative accusative plural. Here it's nominative accusative plural. All things through him came about. Good job. And then agenita is the middle voice, eta, and this is second aorist of genomai. You've got a root change.
Isn't it also genopo, or is that
From genomai, right? All things came about through him. Good job. And Brett, kai chorus autu agenita uda hen.
So we got in, sure.
And
And then the EV, that's in, right?
it's in, but notice it's got the rough breathing, so it's hint. So this is one thing.
So, and it says same in this, right?
Excuse me. So the agenita is going to be your friend. If you can get the agenita here, all things came about through him.
And through him, nothing was.
Right. And apart from him, so chorus takes the genitive. Apart from him, there came about not even hen, not even one thing. Zoe, is that how we're going? Is it to Zoe or to Vinny? Yeah, okay, Zoe. See, half the battle is that first punch back, right? I'm going to get this Greek sentence. So you know that this is your name, so it's was. You're headed. You're leaning in the right direction. What would be in alto? You've got in from NRK ein ha logos. Or no, we're developing. We're developing together. So in him, Zoe ein. And ein is your friend from NRK ein ha logos. Was. So in him was life. If you wrote that down, I would give you most of the point. So this is going to be a relative clause. What has come about? What has come about in him was Zoe.
I thought, I feel like I've been here before, but I thought Hagagonen went with the last thing. Like,
That's how most English translations do it. They put a period, not one thing which has come about, period. In him was life. But our Greek editors make this part of that clause. What came about in him was life.
because doesn't the Peshitta and the Vulgate also put it with verse 4 and verse 5?
Well, none of those have punctuation in the original, so it's all editors. Good, Zoe. And you guys realize we're studying for our midterm, right? Right now we're studying for the midterm. So, and we're going to conquer this midterm. I mean, I am invested in making you guys do well on this test. So we're studying now, and you guys, and I'm really proud because you guys have worked hard. So Carter, this is your Kai he Zoe ein ta phos ton anthropon.
Easy money, Carter. You got it. Come on.
I know some of our anthropon is like man,
All right, good.
and tone would be, that would be
The,
man,
all right,
and then Zoe is life.
life,
I don't know. I think it's boss or foes.
phos. Are you a Star Trek fan? Then my mnemonic device won't work.
Is it like a light?
Light.
Is it like, and this man was the light or the light and the light?
You're leaning in the right direction. So you got the was, you got the light, you got men. The only thing you need to explain is why this is in the case it's in.
Genitive, right?
And what do you add when something's in the genitive case?
From?
If you've got a preposition, you add from. If you don't have a preposition, you add. That's the dative. It's the second one down in the chart. You're about to triumph. I can feel he's about to take the first step back. And
Whatever you guys are doing is making me work.
Yeah, don't look at my hand.
Oh.
Don't look at
Zoe, what is it? That would be dative.
What? No, we're not.
Cooper? Sure.
And the life was the light of man.
The light was, the life was the light of the men. You see that? So it's of.
Is that what you? Oh my gosh, I was wondering why you were saying that.
You got it. You got it exactly right. And you know what? Next time you're going to know exactly what the genitive is, because I found that the way I learn is I have to be confused and then realize I'm confused and then fix that little thing that I'm confused about. But the nice thing about Greek is it's not really that complicated. I mean, it's just case systems, and you've got 4 cases, and once you kind of get that kind of connection, then all of that's going to be simple, because when you come to it, you say, oh, that's a genitive I add of. That's a dative I add to or for. So this is a good thing. I don't know anybody who comes to Greek and finds it easy. I think everybody who's ever wrestled with Greek, but this is going to make us great students. So that's a good thing. Vinny, kai ta phos inte skatia fine.
And the light in the darkness shines.
Perfect. And the light in the darkness shines. And Fisher, he skatia alta u kata labin. That's exactly right. And this is our second aorist from catalambano. Okay, right? Catalambano is the word. It means to take down, to seize, laid hold of, a forceful seizure, all that. This is Bauer Danker Art Gingrich. And so, see, that's your second aorist, cat. So that's your temporal augment. You augment the verb part of it. Lambano is your verb. Is a compound verb, catalambano. So elabon, your aorist ending. So, and the darkness it did not take down. And so you could say take it down like this. That's why people translate it comprehend. Or it could be take it down like that. And in John 11, that's how it's used. So it means did not overcome it, did not take it, did not conquer it. Probably the background is Genesis 1. God said, let there be light. And when God said, let there be light, what happened? There was light. And God saw that the light was good. What does that imply about the darkness? It's bad, and it's only good in the sense of it shows foil to the goodness of the light. And what if that's a parable of our salvation, that God comes to something dead, dark, without form and void? God says, let there be light. When God said, let there be light, there was light. God saw the light was good. God separated the light from the darkness.
Doesn't Paul sort of compare?
2 Corinthians 4:6. Yeah. All right. So where are we? Petra. There came about a man, there became a man. Notice the word was ain, but when John's spoken of, John egenitos. So Andrew, we're probably getting into the more difficult portions, but hey, we're studying for the midterm, so we'll do this together. Theou, right. Right. So this apostomenos is a perfect passive, apostolmai. So anytime you have an ominous ending without the ah, it's nearly always going to be a perfect. So it's a perfect past from apostello. We get the word apostle, which means the sent one. So a perfect of that would be having been sent, para theou, having been sent from God. Perfect. All right, Chase.
His name is John.
Right, name to him John. What's our mnemonic device for anima? Mine is onomatopoeia, where a word sounds like what it is. And then this is just your dative singular name to him, Ioannes. This is how you say Jehovah or YHWH. And then this is grace. So the grace of Yahweh is, I guess, what Ioannes means. It is, but remember when we learned that specialty declension for stratiotes, the soldier? It's feminine looking, but it's obviously a masculine word. Any skill word in Greek has that feminine looking masculine ending, like poietes, polites, and so this just follows that. So this is actually the nominative form. Caleb, hutas eilthin eis martyrion. Right, he came into a witness, is literally, but he came as a witness, I think we would say. And eilthin, believe it or not, is the second aorist of erchomai. Erchomai is a deponent verb. It's to come. So this is the second aorist, came. This one came into a witness. Good. I feel like I've pushed you a little hard today. Do we need to... In past classes, whenever we need to rest mentally, I know 8 jokes and I end up telling all 8 of them. So you want to hear my first one? Okay, so I'm a big Winston Churchill fan. I tried to name Jonathan Winston, but Lynn wouldn't have it. So probably good for him. But Winston Churchill was a really funny guy and quick on his feet. And people always tried to insult him, and they always came out on the short end. And so his big opponent was a woman who was on the other side of the political spectrum. And she came up to him and said, "Sir, you're drunk." And he said, "Yes, madam, and you're ugly, but I'll be sober tomorrow." And she said, "Sir, if you were my husband, I would put poison in your tea." And he said, "Madam, if you were my wife, I would drink it." And do you know the playwright George Bernard Shaw? Bernard Shaw, he is a famous playwright, and he wanted to insult Churchill one time, and so he sent him 2 tickets and said, "I'd like to send 2 tickets to the opening night of my play." And he said, "They're for you and a friend." And then in parentheses, he put, "if you have one." And so Churchill got an envelope and put them back and sent it back and had a little note and said, "I'm sorry, I have a conflict on opening night. I'll be glad to come to night 2." And in parentheses, he put, "if there is one." He was quick, maybe too quick. So we cleared our minds. This one came into witness in order that he might witness concerning the light, in order that all might pisteuo, this is a great word, believe, in order that all might believe through him. Again, we have this all word, pontes, so in order that all men, all people, I think it probably means there. Uk ene kenos taphos, that man was not the light. But, and I think here John kind of wants us to supply aelthen. Greek will do that if they think that you can supply the word. For them, it was kind of insulting your intelligence if they supplied a word that they thought you could supply. So I think you have to supply aelthen here, but he came in order that he might bear witness concerning the light. There was the true light. So that's our was. So this is I was, you were, he, she, or it was. We were, you were, they were. So this one is that one. This one was the true light, the true one. Question?
Why was that capitalized?
It's the start of a quote. Whenever you quote direct speech, you capitalize the first word. Which photidzo. Now, if we know phos, what would you think the verb idzo would mean? If phos is light, which enlightens, which lights up, panta anthropon, every man. And then we have coming into the world, so this is your participle, middle participle. But notice there are two ways to read that, which enlightens every man. What kind of man is it? A coming into the world man. So that's saying the Logos, when someone is born, enlightens them. Our Greek editors think that's the wrong way to take it. They put the comma here, and so the erchomenos goes all the way back to light. There was the true light, which enlightens all man, and that light was coming into the cosmos. It was in the cosmos, and the cosmos through him came about. He created the cosmos, but the cosmos him did not know. This is actually where we get our word know from. Can you hear it? Knosko? That's why we spell it the way we spell it. K-N-O-W.
Cosmos being world, like translated world typically. Why is it translated world when it seems to be an all-encompassing?
I think it should be. I think we should translate it cosmos.
Yeah.
He came into the cosmos, and the cosmos did not know him. From gnosko, and notice the second aorist, egonon, you've got a root change, right? So this is actually your second aorist of no. And then we'll end with these two. Into his idia he came. Into his own stuff he came. Right, like the created thing. He owned the earth. He came into the earth. He owned space and time. He came into that. And then it switches to the nominative, hoi idioi. Masculine nominative plural, the.
And the own of him did not receive him.
And his
And his own did not receive him.
his own people. What word in English do we get from this?
Idiot.
And how do you get from one's own to idiot? if you're an idiot, you live in your own kind of reality. That's actually where. And when I memorized this, you know how I memorized it? He came into his own stuff.
And his own stuff were idiots.
His own stuff were idiots. And we were idiots because we did not receive him. But as many as received him, he gave the power to become the technotheu.
Could that exousion, could that be translated inheritance or right? I feel like
I think it's power.
I thought it was like authority or power, but I must be thinking of a different passage. Sorry.
So we have the patron saint of free will, whosoever will may come, right? If you come, he gave the right to become the children of God. Yay, patron saint of Arminian, patron saint verse of Arminian. And then we have
Who believe in his name?
who are not from blood, not from the will of the flesh. Free will, not from the will of man, but from God were begotten. You remember that conversation you had with your parents when y'all were deciding when you were going to be born? You remember that conversation?
Dude, I love that.
Yeah.
We debated all.
Yeah. You want to be a boy or a girl, You remember that conversation? Yeah, me either. So we got a verse that's the patron saint of Arminianism and the patron saint of Calvinism, and it's the same sentence in Greek. It's the same, whosoever will, and you're born of God. So whatever the Bible's teaching is something big enough to bring both sides of that verse together, which is pretty cool. And we get to study it. So thank you very much, and I will see you on Wednesday.